morning.
This is I usually do this in like an hour, so I'm gonna squash it into 20 minutes and give us as good as examples as I can. So we're building up from doing what is mental health, the difference between emotional health and mental health. Then we talked about some ways to manage. And as we're here and we're doing prayer, I want to talk about some of the things that the way our bodies respond to the experiences that we have and how that might impact prayer so that we can have an awareness and understanding, so that we can be more compassionate with people as well, with ourselves and with others. In Mind, Character, and Personality, Ellen White says the brain nerves, which communicates with the entire system, are the only avenue through which heaven can communicate to man and affect his innermost life. That's our brain nerves. I'm going to talk a little bit about our brain, our frontal lobe, where we do reason and thinking and make good decision, and our emotional brain, the limbic system, where things are stored when we have experiences. So the person who is struggling with their mental health or struggling with worry and distress and anxiety, it's not because they want to. The people who have experienced difficulties in their childhood and is struggling mentally in adult life, it's not because they want to, it's what was recorded in the brain, and we don't choose what was recorded. Events that have an emotional connection is recorded in the brain. And so I'm going to take us through this morning what we can do to become aware of what we've experienced and to become aware of just life in general and how that might affect us, and some of the things that we can do to to help ourselves. It is impossible for these to realize. Ellen White is talking about the brain, the binding claims of the holy law of God when our nerves are deadened by the use of narcotics. And I wanted to put this quote in just so that we know some of the ways people cope, some of the ways people cope when they've experienced stress and distress, and they're really struggling. Now, prayer is a really good coping strategy, but oftentimes people, when they're growing up with their traumas, have survival responses, and we don't all grow up in Christian homes that we know how to pray. So when people have come into church, have come to the Lord and is learning about Him and learning how to use prayer, but they're also using other things to cope. So I'm sharing that so again we can have compassion, and even with yourself. While some might not use narcotics, some might overwork, some might use food, some use social media, some use alcohol, some use pornography, people use overwork in church, a wide range of things to cope, and it's the same effect. It's the same thing that they're doing. It's the same survival strategy. So Satan knows that it cannot be, and for this reason he brings temptation to bear upon men upon the point of appetite. And as I just give some very description, that he may bring them into bondage to his propensity and thus work their ruin. So when we experience distress and we don't have good coping strategies, the enemy knows that we're vulnerable at those times when we're in the emotional brain and don't know how to get back to the frontal lobe. He knows that he has us then because we're not sober, we're not vigilant, because we stay sober and vigilant in our frontal lobe, not in our emotional brain. So there's an image on the screen of an iceberg, and most of it is beneath the surface, and a lot of it, just a little bit, is above. I want you to think of this as the brain. Yeah, this is the tiny part above water is our frontal lobe, and the part beneath is our, the limbic system and other systems of the other parts of the brain. So the part that has emotions like the amygdala that records how we feel when and something happened, or the hippocampus that records the how, what, where of and when of events, or our memory is stored. If you think about it here, right beneath the water, and just up here is our frontal lobe. But the Lord said, the word of God says we should be sober and vigilant. We stay sober and vigilant in our frontal lobe. But when we are triggered, this is where we automatically go beneath the water. Now, that's not because we plan it. That's not because we want to. It's just how the body works. The nervous system communicates to the brain that you have an overwhelm of emotions come in and you need to shut down, right? And that's what happens. Where prayer is a frontal lobe activity, unless it becomes such a ingrained part of our lives that we know and we can sense and feel when we're triggered. We know those situations that would send us in fight or flight, and we would run to Lord quickly. You know, the Bible says that a wise man sees the devil from afar off and hide it himself. If we know the things that when we talked about mental health and emotional health, go back and watch those replays. And when we talk about how to cope, a massive part of coping is understanding what we're feeling, not what we're thinking, because emotions are not thoughts, they're bodily sensations, and the brain translates those sensations for us and tell us what they are, right? So if we can recognize when we're triggered, what are the things that it upsets me? What are the things that sends me in despair and despondency? What are the things that makes me sad? What are the things that makes me frustrated, angry, or all those emotions on that continuum? What are the things that do that for me? Then it's easier for us to be able to stay present and not get, you know, go into the emotional brain where we are not able to hear the Lord speak to us and say, Joanna, this is what I want you to do. This is what's happening. You don't need to be afraid. I am with you, you know, so that we can hear the heaven communicate with us, as we read from that first quote, that the brain nerves that communicate with the entire system is the only avenue through which heaven communicates with man and affects his innermost life. So you can imagine if you are in distress, if you are triggered and you're not sure what to do, and you're coping with porn or overwork or food or movies or anything else that we're using to cope, and we're not able to hear heaven as clearly as we would if we were present and in the frontal lobe. And so nobody's in the frontal lobe all the time. We all get triggered, whether we're aware of it or not. That's what's happening. And so it's important for us to know, because the space between, if you look at my fingers, the space between trigger and automatic response is milliseconds. So before we know it, we're there. So I'm afraid of dogs because I was bitten. I was chased and bitten by my auntie's ferocious dog, and he is Brunzo, he's called, and was a big dog, and he chased me around the house and he bit me, and I was traumatized by it. And I'm a grown woman, right? And I can see the tiniest little dog, and as soon as I see it, instantly my mind go Brunzo. So I have to talk myself back, right? To go, okay, you're a grown up now. You don't have to be afraid. You know what to do. Take deep breaths. All right. Okay. So the dog is not coming for you. It's not going to bite you. Right. And so over time doing that, I can talk myself down. But seeing a dog is a trigger. I don't always run away, but I'm still aware that, oh, there's a dog. So if you can think about what your triggers might be, based on the experiences that you've had, and what happens to you when you think about, when you see, when you smell, when you're anywhere near that trigger, and triggers are external, that things that happen outside, and triggers are internal. So you could be at home in your room, the door is locked, the windows are locked, nobody can come in. You're not on social media, you're not listening to the tape, you're not watching anything, you're not talking to anyone, and you're still triggered because the mind, the brain will bring up a memory. The brain will take a memory from the emotional brain to the frontal lobe and present that memory to you with all the things that you felt when you experienced that thing, and you're triggered. And so everybody's vulnerable. Everybody, it happens to everyone. And so we need to be aware of the things that we can do to cope, to move out of our survival responses. That the thing that happened to us when we face these difficult situations, if we know how to move out, it helps us. So if we know what happens, then we're aware of it. Self-awareness helps us greatly. When we're aware of this is how I am and this is who I am, and not go, that's who I am and I can't change. If you want to change, you can. So when we're triggered, we go into a fight responses where we lash out, we're angry, we quarrel, we shout, or we shut down, where we look like we're coping and we're okay, but we're not. A lot of times in Christian settings, I see where we shut down, we repress it. and we look like we're healthy, emotionally healthy Christians, but we're not. But because the shutting down person and the person who becomes angry and lash out, the same things are happening to their body. So nobody's exempt. If I shut down and I look like I'm calm and I'm serene on the outside, even though I've experienced a traumatic event, and the person who fights and quarrel and is angry, we're both experiencing our digestive systems are compromised, our organs are impacted, our bodies are vulnerable to disease, our immune systems is lowered. It's the same thing that is happening to everybody. And so we all need to know what is going on. And healing requires the capacity to feel what that trigger is so that we can sit with it and we can work through it. So one of the ways to do that is to get to know your bodies. One of the ways to get to more access to your frontal lobe is to be aware of what's going on in your body. Where in your body do you feel anger? Where in your body do you feel sadness? Where in your body do you feel panic and frustration and this despondency and despair? Where in your body do you feel laughter and joy? Locate it in your body. And when you find it where, some people it's in their tummy, in their chest, in their shoulders, in their head, their brain's foggy, their back is stiff and they get back pain, lower back pain, joint aches. People feel it in a variety of places in their body. Locate it for you where you feel it. And if, as you see on the screen, what's happening, people are stretching, people are exercising, deep breathing and exercise and stretch. Movement helps us to release those feelings from our bodies. When we are stressed and we're in our survival responses, stress hormones is dumped in the body. It can take up to 25 hours to work it off. If we don't, it stays there. It becomes autoimmune illnesses. It becomes diabetes. It becomes certain cancers. It becomes mental health. It becomes all of those things. So I put this image on the screen of a mobile phone that sometimes when we're calm, when we're not aware of what's going on in our bodies and we don't have access to our frontal lobe, so we're not praying, we're not going to God, we're not calling on him because things are running in the background, even though on the surface it might look like we're coping. So if you think, have you ever charged your mobile phone full charge, but you go somewhere and your battery runs low? And I learned this some time ago and it amazed me. And I use it and I felt it was a good analogy that sometimes we charge our phones, we go out, we think we're okay, and our batteries die because we had some apps running in the background that we did not know about, and they take our battery life. That's the same thing that happens when we are looking calm on the outside, but on the inside, we're triggered and our nervous systems are dysregulated, our hormones are out, our digestive system's not working, our organs are impacted, but on the outside, we look serene and calm. So it's really important that we tap into that so that we can plug that mobile phone in and it can charge. We can be aware that, you know what, let me close these apps. So what is it for you that is running in the background that takes away your time of prayer, that takes away your ability to pray, that takes away your ability to focus in prayer? Because sometimes we can pray. Have you ever been praying, but your mind is wandering all over the place? You are on your knees, but your mind is shopping, thinking of supper, the person to respond to, the question you need to ask, this thing you need to do, and you're praying, but you can't focus because too much apps is running in the background because of how stressful life is or how distressed you are or what's going on in your life at the moment. And so as we learn to become aware of those things, we can learn how to close those apps. And while we're on our knees, we can be attuned with heaven so heaven can communicate with us, so that God can communicate with us, so that we can hear what to do. I don't know about you, but when I'm not hearing God, I'm in a distress because I want to hear him so that he can tell me what to do. So I know I'm going really, really fast, but I really wanted us to get an essence of what it means to how trauma and stress impacts our prayer life and the things that we can do to relax the muscles, to rewire the brain so that we can be able to be accessible to heaven, so that the enemy is not the one using us all the time. I talk about triggers being external and internal. And so prayer is one coping mechanism. There are many other coping strategies. So for the person who experienced trauma and say to me, I'm praying, I know they're often not really praying, because prayer is one coping strategy and we use it in conjunction with others. Like we have a health message. Trust is one part of the message. There is exercise and water and rest that is another part of the message. It's a complete holistic approach to dealing with situations that we've experienced. And when we say we're praying and I'm only using one, I know oftentimes that we're not, because sometimes we're not able to hear God when he speaks to us. We're not able to hear him say, I need you to call somebody. I need you to attend that meeting. I need you to read this book. We're not able to hear because heaven can't communicate with us. So sometimes the emotions that we're trying to manage and we're trying to understand might feel like this, like surfing the wave. And so that's why we shut down. But as we're healing, as we're managing, healing is like surfing the wave. And after a while, this huge bank of water, you know, becomes like a stream, like a little a little stream. It's not as frightening and scary. It reduces. Yeah, so I was talking there about the benefits of exercise. I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can exercise to help to relax the muscles in your body so that you can be more present in prayer. Um, listen to yourself and what you do when you're stressed. As I say, listen to your body, get to know and understand it. You might need to learn how to listen to your body. These are some of the things to do: walking, swimming, biking, jogging, skiing. Any form of movement is helpful. Any form of movement is helpful when we are in distress. I thought I had some more slides here, but my screen is acting up. It's not letting me change my screen. But any form of movement is any form of movement works when you're in distress, when you're triggered, when you try to fight, when you try to understand how your body responds, when you're getting familiar with your body and what it feels like when you're triggered. Any kind of movement is good. Going for walks in nature, there is research that shows the impact of green spaces on our mental health. Wherever you live, find a park, go for a walk in the park. Even if it's raining, even if it's cold, put your coat on, your hood on, get your umbrella, put on your wellies, and go outdoors for walks. It's really important. If you are struggling with your mental health and you have a diagnosis, or you're struggling in great distress, you might need to go twice per day. You may need to go in the morning and in the evening to get your body relaxed enough to go to sleep. If you're struggling with sleep, exercising before bed helps to really calm your body, that it can help you. Now, we don't want to do vigorous exercises before bed, but we want to do enough to relax the body, to strengthen the muscle, and to help you to get a good night's sleep, which is a part of the package of helping you to manage. As I said, exercise helps to relax the body. It helps to soothe the nervous system. It helps to calm the brain. It helps you to be able to stay present in prayer so that when we pray, we can hear heaven, we can hear God communicating with us, we can hear what he's telling us so that we can know what to do next. Because sometimes when we're in distress, sometimes we're in distress and we're afraid of praying. We feel like God has not heard. What's the point? We're struggling with anxiety. We're struggling with depression. We're struggling with distress. We're worried about a family member. We're worried about our life. We're worried about situations. And we neglect to pray because we thought, well, I've been praying for years and God has not answered. But sometimes we're not able to hear him say, this is what I want you to do in order to solve that problem. This is what I want you to do in order to answer that prayer. This is what I want you to do to help yourself. I know I had to rush this morning because of time, and then my screen has frozen and I can't change anymore. But I know my time is up. That's what I wanted to share with you so that you can have an understanding of how prayer works how prayer can work for us when we are struggling. I just wanted to share this last slide that we do not have to, you do not have to walk around. We do not have to walk like this in despair and despondency. We do not have to walk with a heavy load on our backs, feeling like we're on our own and that God is not hearing us. If we learn how to, the Bible said to cast our cares upon Him. As we go to prayer, just remember that God hears, He understands, He knows, He wants to walk alongside us and help us to cope and help us to bear the burdens that we're bearing. We do not have to carry it alone, but we can trust Him. But back to you, Sister Barbara.